Take two. Laoshi Lawrence McElroy here for Water Tiger School of taijiquan. I said take two because this is the second time we've shot this video. We noticed a little bit of a glitch with the sound in the last video after it posted, and we gave something a shot to avoid that from happening again. And let's just say we missed by a wide margin. So here we are, another in our pre-recorded video series, which is all that we're currently sort of doing on a regular basis. These things started back in March of 2020. We did some Facebook Live stuff. We switched it eventually to YouTube Live, and neither of those at that time were working out technologically for us, probably more about us than about the platforms. So we just went to the YouTube channel. So here we are. And you might have noticed that I said began in March 2020. So yeah, it was because of the coronavirus pandemic, which is still here. Shouldn't be, but is. So that just means you get to see us a little bit more consistently than you would had we actually gone into the light at the end of the last tunnel we were in. But anyway, enough about all that. We're here today for a little bit of Tai Chi focus. It's something that we've been doing since the very early days of this, exploring aspects of Water Tiger School's Tai Chi lottery, which is where we have these little slips, hence lottery. And when we didn't have to maintain physical distance, they'd be held out to the student would pull a slip, and that was their focus for their play. We currently have 11. We actually didn't have 11 when all this started, but we added a couple over the last year. And we're on the 10th. We haven't done them in any particular order, but we have done a bunch of them. And you might notice if you recognize, if you know the list, Drunken, Dalton, X, Molasses, Quicksilver, Minimal, Maximal, Round, Straight, Short, Tall, and Mr. Roboto. Except for the last one, they all sort of have different sides of the coin. And they each have their own individual focus. Drunken as loose as possible, Dalton X with as much activation as possible, like Dalton playing Tai Chi in the movie Roadhouse, so Patrick Swayze. Molasses as slow as possible, Quicksilver as fast as possible, Minimal as little movement as possible, Maximal as much movement as possible, Round really emphasizing the roundness in the play, Straight emphasizing straight, Short, low stance, Tall, high stance, Mr. Roboto focusing on the joints. And today we are doing straight. Back in March of this year, of 2021, actually March 1st, we focused on the round side. And that was Water Tiger for Sachem. It was actually our last Water Tiger for Sachem. And on this news channel, it's not news, on this YouTube channel, it is under the playlist Water Tiger for Sachem, parenthetically new, for March 1st, and that's Tai Chi Lottery round. So we'll get to straight here in a moment. We're going to start with a little warm-up, one of the pieces of the standing 8 piece of brocade. Probably the last one we'll do as a warm-up. We've done pretty good. We do repeat some stuff when we do the 5 animal frolics. We normally always do advance and retreat from the 9 temple exercises, but everything else, except in the very early days, we've done our best not to repeat warm-ups. Like, I've done my best to always find, I'd like to say, hey, wardrobe has done its best to make sure, but yeah, we're not that big. It's just me choosing the t-shirts. Different t-shirt. We're getting pretty close to the end of me being able to have a different t-shirt on. there you go. The '04 New York City Century Bike Tour. Back in about that time in the mid-aughts, I used to do a lot of bike rides in the city, and it was always a lot of fun. I did the Century. I did on a regular basis for about 3 or 4 years. 5 boroughs. Didn't really ride the whole 5 borough ride, but we hit, I think, at least 3. And the annual MS fundraiser. The yeah, just that the MS fundraiser. So anyway, and it was kind of fun, and it was kind of it kind of hit my heart a little bit because all the way back in the day, in the early '80s, my first citywide experience in New York as a Midwestern boy, and I was a boy. It was like right out of undergrad, so I was like 22, I think. Um, my first real tour of the city was on a bike. I was doing I was setting a house setting or apartment setting for somebody I'd worked with at an arts fair over the summer. And I borrowed his bike, and a friend came in from one of the boroughs, and we just rode bikes around all of Manhattan. It was an interesting experience. But anyway, enough about that. So I'm going to move my ball. We're shooting this in the morning, so I have both hot tea and cool tea. And take a shot of my Lapsang Souchong and take off my socks. Yeah, I know I'm headless right now. I'm often headless in these. And I'll just do a little shake. So, blue lines are here. That means we're going to be talking a lot about shoulder width and stance and that sort of thing, especially if you don't really have any Tai Chi experience and you're watching this video. If you have your own approach for stance and that sort of thing, then you don't really have to mimic mine. Use your stance, but when it comes to the Tai Chi stuff. But you still want to do the straight focus aspect of it. So anyway, again, the standing 8, whenever we do the standing 8, we always talk about how most people's approach, though not everybody, tends to be more external, sort of a more fire approach. It's all about the physicality. I apologize for that. I did not turn that alarm off. That's my first alarm of the morning to let me know that I need to get my steps in, and I already have. And I should have shut it off, and I apologize. Bad Laoshi. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, that they're external, that it's about the physicality. It is about the the activation of the muscles, the position of the body, that sort of thing, and that's what cultivates the chi and moves the chi through the body. And yes, that's still true, but we also focus on the internal, so we do a blended approach, water and fire. And anyway, so there you go. If you know Water Tiger School, you also know when we're shoulder wide, and notice that's where, my feet are now at Water Tiger School's definition of shoulder width, where the drop of the shoulder is, where the drop of the shoulder is, cuts the heels in half. We have a 10-piece Tai Chi Qigong breathing set, and one of those pieces is turn heaven and earth in front of the body. And the hands come to the center line, left hand to start with, this is my left hand, left hand, goes up, right hand goes down, rooting down into the earth, lifting, sort of pressing into the heavens. So both positions are active, but not overtly active. It's a rather subtle activation, switching back and forth between the sides. The piece from the standing 8 pieces of Brocade might sort of tweak a memory of that, but there are a lot of differences. First, for our approach, we are inside our shoulder width. So I always say a comfortable amount. I'm usually here at about hip width, maybe a little bit beyond, a little bit inside. It sort of depends upon how things feel for me for the day, what I feel I need. What that does is it sort of compresses some things and creates a little bit deeper activation. The in position, the hand is going down, not on the center line, but on its side of the body, in the plane of the body. And notice the arm is close to a full extension, but I'm not locking off. And that end position of the hand is very active, striking kind of energy. Even though we're holding the position, it's still striking energy. It'll be the same for the up hand. For the up hand, again, in turn heaven and earth in front of the body, it's in the front plane of the body. Here, we're bringing it into the plane of the body. And it should be right at the halfway, right at the center line. So my left hand, this is my left hand, palm up, tips of the fingers right at the Bach Wei point, at the 100 convergences, at the crown point of the head. So not very many people have an issue with this position. Some people have an issue with this position because they have, an impingement of some sort or just a range of motion issue, and they can't get to that point. So say this is as far back as you can get that hand. Then what you do is imagine a second hand there holding that hand, and you imagine, you visualize, you create the feeling that, hey, I really can get back there, but there's somebody's hand there, and you do an isometric press back against that invisible imaginary hand, and that creates a twist in the arm, in the wrist, in the forearm, in the upper arm, in the shoulder, in the pec, in the chest, in the upper back, the delt, everything, that sort of mimics, it's not quite the same thing, but it comes close to the same feeling you get if you did put the hand there. So those are two of the three hand positions you need to know. The third is what we refer to as third position. And third position is not embracing the moon or embracing the tree, not with the palms back, the palms slightly open, at about chest level. And see if I get, oh, there it is. Look at that shadow on the mat. I want to circle. Sunken chest, rounded back, shoulders to fingertips, create a circle. Not an egg shape one way or an egg shape another way, but a circle. And the palms up, I always use the image of, the old series MASH, Radar O'Reilly sitting outside the colonel's tent with those little reflectors coming up underneath his chin. But of course, Radar would be doing this, but we don't want the head in that position. All right, so that's second position. That's where we start. That's where we move through as we switch from side to side. And that's where we return at the end. We're just going to do three pairs, and I'm holding up 4 fingers. What is wrong with me? 3 pairs. So I move back a little bit again. I always forget to do that. I sort of have a standard place where I stand. But this way you get to see my arms at extensions. We're going to start with the left side first. There are little holds, right? So even though it's striking energy up and striking energy down, I'm holding that while I'm still expanding into those 2 strikes. It reminded me of something. I don't know what it was. The reason that we want striking energy is the original instructions, what they refer to poetry, the translation that we have, we didn't do the translation ourselves, but the translation we have indicates that part of the instruction is to rock the tendons. And if you're there in sort of a soft position, even though, you're sort of in the plane of the body on both sides, so that sort of turns up the volume on things. My tendons aren't very active, but if I go into striking energy, then the tendons become very active. They rock as you go up and down. So again, feet inside of shoulder width, as close to parallel as possible. Little shake. And then, second position. Going to go to the left side first for the up, right side first for the down. The knees are open. You'll want to check in with your knees every once in a while. The active tendons and the striking energy can tend to bring people up out of their knees. Breathe when you have to. There's a compression of the chi to start. So imagine the chi folding into the Xi Dantian, not the acupuncture point, the actual esoteric vessel in the cup of the hips. And then an expansion out from the Xi Dantian and hold. And feel that vertical twist in the torso because of the active energy activation of the striking energy. Release. The compression of the chi as you're moving back into third position. And other side. We refer to it as third position because it's the third of 3 arm positions for 2 other of our 8 pieces of brocade, our approach to 8 pieces of brocade. Release. I keep pointing out our approach because just like Tai Chi, everybody does, well, I wouldn't say everybody, but many, did I mention many? Many people do the 8 pieces of brocade differently. Second to the first side, halfway home, 3 of 6. Release. Four of 6. Again, right at the Bakway point. Right hand is on the right side of the skull. A lot of people go over the top of the skull. That's incorrect. Release from our perspective. Last to the first side. I just ran into somebody else's approach online that's very soft. Kind of cool. Some of the physicality is pretty close to Water Tiger School, but without quite the same amount of activation. Everything done in shoulder width or wider. Last to the second side. Some of the pieces are vastly different. Returning to that third position. Getting there, rotating the wrist, palms down, left to the left, right to the right, fingertips mostly forward. We're going to take a moment floating here. That extra activation, rocking the tendons, you might feel it a little bit. And the hands, the wrists, the forearms, just giving things a chance to sort of settle down a bit. And then we're going to do our standard Water Tiger School closing. Well, almost standard because we're inside of shoulder width, so things are going to feel a little bit differently. If the only time you've ever closed is with feet shoulder wide, be careful, be mindful, because the tendency is for the body to just default to its internal setting and seek to bring the left foot in from shoulder width when it's not shoulder wide. I know, it's weird, but it's true. Up, out, away from the body, settling into the conduit of the right leg, crown point of the head, base of the pelvic bowl, ball of the foot, hands in, foot in, heels in the air, hands down, heel down, lengthening or sitting down into the body, so then you have a rebound to bring the hands into the acupuncture point for the Shiodatian. And there you go. A little split between heaven and earth, the third piece of brocade from the Water Tiger School perspective. So there you go. There's the warm-up. I already mentioned during the introduction sort of the purposes of the round and straight focus. Maybe you recognize the principle to which they refer. You have to be able to recognize the straight in the round and the round in the straight. So the straight in the round is sort of the purpose of today's focus. To really remember that though our movements tend to always have a certain degree of roundness, even the roundest of them still have straightness within them. Just as back on March 1st of this year, the purpose of the round focus is to remind us that when the movements seem to be more straight, there is still a touch of roundness in them. So you really focus on the roundness of the movement in that one. So there are many ways to do this. This is an exercise that makes like sort of fundamental walking exercises. And when I say fundamental, I mean particularly our Walking the Rails series and rails with rotations. Not a lot you can do round and straight there and maintain sort of the integrity of those exercises. You can even do like a Tai Chi walk and just focus on, less rounded movement. There's a tendency when we do the Tai Chi walk, sort of round the step out, and you make sure that it's stepping on a straight line, in, out, so you're really forming a triangle as opposed to a semicircle. So you could just do a lower body thing. But postures are better. You can do a posture walk. You can just walk across with a posture that you have from your form, from your lineage, or you can do a form, whatever the form is. Our sort of go-to in the series has always been the 24. So that's where I'm planning on starting, and then maybe a little bit of time with an individual posture. You don't even have to do a posture walk. You can just do a rocking exercise where you're moving forward and back. So a couple of things before we get started. The blue lines here, as I have mentioned, represent our shoulder width, which is where the drop of the shoulder splits the heel in half. So I'm always aiming as I'm walking for that heel to land at that shoulder width. There are some things about our four stance that you have to know. If you are following me, if you have your own four stance from your own lineage, don't feel like you have to mirror me. I might suggest giving it a shot. I've attended seminars and workshops with other instructors, and I always seek to follow their instruction implicitly so I can have a better understanding of what their approach is, even though it might be vastly different. Even there are people who suggest a different breath pattern than my lineage does, different stances, not, a little bit more narrow, a little bit longer, hips not in full rotation. So you explore those differences, how it makes you feel, and it either makes you question what it is that you've been doing. Oh, maybe I really don't have the right interpretation of that. Or it strengthens your opinion about what you're doing. It gives you more, oh, well, I understand why they do that, but my way for me makes more sense. Note all of those personal pronouns I just used. So our forward moving stance, is created. And normally we step with the left foot first, so that means the right foot's going to be the back foot. The right foot goes out to around a 45. Note the language I just used, around a 45. So from forward toward the camera, 90-degree angle to the full right over there, perpendicular to the camera, to somewhere around about halfway in between. Yes, there are folks who will say, who have the idea of the 45 and say it has to be at the 45. We realize that people have different mobilities, so wherever that needs to be. I have like 6 screws in my left foot. Sometimes it cannot be at the 45. When we shot our first take on this yesterday, 45 was not possible. We'll see where it is today. Right, so around the 45, so enough weight in that foot, step the left foot forward on its railroad track, shoulder width. Notice I'm not doing this. It's not my shoulder width this way. It's my shoulder width this way, obliquely, side to side, left to right, that way. No other angles. Toes forward or in. So notice this is forward toward the camera, toward the device. This is moving into my center line. You do not want to be in four stance with the toes here. They go there during the transition, but other aspects of the bodily movement make that okay. In this position, it's not okay for the knee. When I'm going forward and those toes are out, the knee is not supported, but forward or in, out here, no, here, here. The other thing you have to remember is, just like they would tell you in most physical training aspects, knee over ankle, that's an implicit thing for a lot of the training programs in which I have participated. We're actually okay knee over top of foot. Where we don't want to be is knee over or beyond toes. Tai Chi is very good for the knees. It can actually, if the footwork is proper, it can actually start to heal knees that have previous damage. Mileage may vary. However, if you come to Tai Chi with healthy knees and you get the knee-foot alignment incorrect, some orthopedic surgeon somewhere is going to love the fact that you did that. You might buy him a new car. So over ankle safest, over top of the foot, fine. I want to square off the hips. Now there are some things that you need to know about that knee-foot alignment. To shift, I have to turn back into the back foot. But you want to make sure you're not turning that knee, moving that knee like an old-fashioned saloon door, not swinging sideways. You're sitting down to that leg, folding into the leg, so in this case the right knee has stayed pointed the same direction as my right foot. Then when I pivot to take my step, this is closing the quad, where the inner upper thigh comes into contact with the pelvic bone, like the pages of the book. To take the next step, it opens like the pages of the book. So once again, I'm not pulling that knee in. See, that would be bad. Keeping the knee open, so you have the openness in the groin. I prefer saying quad, but not everybody always recognizes quad right away. Right, so my right knee is still pointing the same direction as my right toes. Now that foot is at the 45, and as I'm filling that foot at the 45, the back heel comes up off the ground when it has to. And then, here the knee is supported. And I bring the foot in, and I put the foot back out. And by the way, this is sort of 5 into 1. We do a 5 count. 2 is turning and filling the foot. 3 is rocking back to release the foot and the arms in the posture. 4 is turning that foot out to the 45. And 5 is coming up, hopefully more gracefully than I just did. I'm going to do a little casual close. We don't usually close. Well, no, that was 2 steps. Never mind. That was fine. So, upper body, you'll need to know for what we're about to do. Sort of basically 2 positions. Beginning position, we have a ball. Note the roundness there. Ball is going to be held as you're turned to the side, either to the right or to the left. The hand that's at the bottom comes up, so the center of the palm, right to the center of the chest. Round. See if I can find my shadow again. Oops, went too far. See, I'm not in too close. I'm not out too far. That arm is bowed. Elbow slightly down. The other hand, not in the plane of the body like it was for split between heaven and earth, but in the front plane of the body, palm down. And this is Water Tiger School's Parting the Wild Horse's Mane. Other people will have all sorts of different hand positions for Parting the Wild Horse's Mane. And upper body, lower body together, moving in, ideally moving in to hold the ball. So forming the ball is 5. Once the ball is there, the foot is there, so there's 1. 2, hand down, hand up, the fingertips pass close together. Note sort of, the roundness, the way it opens, sort of expands round like a balloon, rolls joint to joint in, hands turn, foot turns. This is 4, coming into forming the ball. 5, 1, 2. 3, 4, into 5, 1, 2. That was a crappy step. And close. So relatively roundness, you can sort of see the looseness. Well, the joint should still be loose in the straight, but everything sort of takes a curved path to where it's going. So if you focus on the straight, even the opening, which is the reverse of our closing, right? Our opening, if I were to turn to the side, and sort of see roundness, even though I'm stepping right straight out to the side, up and out, round over the top of the ball, rolling over into the ball, down, up and out, nice and round, down, big round sweeping motions into the ball. So what you want to do is find the straightness within that. So focusing more on finding the straight than in really making sure that everything is rounded. Knees are open here. Really focusing on this first thing, very much sliding sideways, very much dropping the hands right straight down. Boom, settling the weight into the right leg. Out. Just like drawing curtains out, which is a little bit different than that sort of soft round. So out, up. Still sort of on the surface of the ball, but very much just going to its position in and down. Some of this might start to look, if you're not careful, like the Mr. Roboto version and be, oops, sorry, that was sort of the standard. So before, nice undulation in the movement here, really just getting to that point. Boom, boom. Releasing, straight expansion, turning, getting there in more of a straight line than a soft arced line. And again, coming in, not softly forming the ball. Joints are still loose, but very much straight. Boom, boom. Going to take one more step. There are only 3 in the form. As I'm talking and doing it, I'm starting to look more Mr. Roboto and focusing on the straight, and my casual closing was still round. So that casual closing in more of a straight version would be a little bit, straight. So there's the opening of the 24 within Water Tiger School's approach to the 24 posture. Whatever form you do, if there can maybe more postures, maybe a 48 posture form, maybe the traditional form, which has all sorts of different numbers depending upon your lineage. We actually only count 48, but a lot of people can put it in at 108 postures, or 96 postures, or 84 postures. Maybe it's the combined form. Maybe it's a 2 posture form. Who knows? So anyway, so a form. Or, just parting while the horse's mane is a walking exercise. Or take a single posture and focus on it. For instance, our ward off. Now, our ward off may look like some people's parting while the horse's mane, at least partially. It too starts in forming the ball. There's actually one of these videos back in the early part of last year when these things first started, was ball variations. And we did 3 postures, all starting with the ball, but they all end differently. So ward off was one of them. So it's the same stance, it's the same beginning position, but our traditional ward off, throwing a frisbee. Notice palm ups, angled slightly and not up, not right to the ceiling. The elbow isn't straight down. The arm is bowed and the palm is slightly in. And notice the height too. Some people go too low, many people go too high. I know I'm going off camera, I'm going to keep talking so you know that I'm still around. Grab a staff so you can see that the top of my shoulder and the pads of my fingers make the staff more or less parallel. Sort of the fisheye aspect of, oh, there we go. Yeah, the fisheye aspect of this will sort of change that a little bit, but I was a little bit high in a distance from the earth fashion, not a California, Colorado kind of high. On the other hand, throwing a frisbee, underhand pitch. Note the big sweep. Boom. And of course, ideally, both hands and the turn of the waist all in together. And then, if I were doing this as a regular ward-off walking exercise, it'd sort of look like I'm already doing roll back to go back in. So I'd sweep back in. If you want to focus on the straight and do ward-off. By the way, this weight distribution, I probably may have mentioned this. I don't know. I'm having a little deja vu because, we shot this yesterday, and I think I've already said some things that I probably haven't already said. 70% of the weight, or around 70%, is on the front leg, 30% is on the back. Then it becomes about either a reverse 70-30, or most people will say 60-40 in this stance, sort of a 3/4 back stance. I actually feel like it's more a little bit beyond that, maybe 4/5 back stance. So this is where we start. Right? And again, if I'm going straight, it's not going to be that nice rounded sweep. I'm going to whip it out there as straight as I can. And this hand's going to cut that short. It's going to start to roll over the top of the ball and come in. So, and coming back, I'm just going to pull right straight back. To really find that idea of that straight, which is still there when things are round, but you're focusing on that most direct line from one point to another. Oops, not sure what that was. So there you go. As a walk or part of a form, as a single posture. This isn't single moment practice, by the way. Water Tiger School believes a lot in single moment practice. Single moment practice would be just that, just coming into that moment, to that end of posture, or beginning, or beginning, or beginning, or beginning the next. This would be single posture practice. Straight. Tai Chi lottery, straight. Remember, there are 11 of them. 11 of them. This is 10. We have one left, and that one is maximal. We've done all the others. And by the way, we might add to this list at some point. Who knows? So there you go. That be it. As always, I hope you, well, had a little bit of fun. I hope maybe we added to the lexicon of what it is that you do and how you do it. This is sort of part of the variety is the spice of Tai Chi idea. A lot of people just, do their floor exercises, do their forms, and never really experiment with their understanding of those things. Whenever you mix things up, be it within, what we've approached here in this series, the Tai Chi Lottery, with these different foci, or, the other things that sort of fall into that variety is the spice of Tai Chi category, such as playing blindfolded, or binding an arm, or adding, carefully, be careful of your structure. You have to have really, really good structure before you start adding a little bit of weight to any part of the body. But considering maybe wrist weights or ankle weights or weighted gloves or something like that. But just a few ounces more than you're used to carrying as you're playing your Tai Chi. And if you're out of structure, that can be bad. Just like if you don't sort of break yourself into the idea of playing blindfolded, you might fall down and hurt yourself. So be careful with your choices, but mix it up. Keep it fresh. It changes your understanding of what it is we do. And that is how we learn more. As Chi and Qigong would say, I stay alive two ways. I breathe and I learn. So again, appreciate your time and attention. Hope you learned something. Hope we added something to your lexicon. Let's see, I covered those two already. I hope maybe you were a little bit entertained. We always believe at Water Tiger School that Tai Chi should be taught with sort of a glint in the eye and a little bit of humor, though not everybody agrees with what I think is humorous. Also, keep in mind, we'll post a link to this on our Facebook page, which means, of course, the comments there are wide open. But for the YouTube channel itself, we actually preview all of them. And the reason for that being is when we leave it up to YouTube to weed out inappropriate posts, they don't do a good job. We always end up with links to, shall we say, hot dates. So we want to preview everything, but as long as you're not, being disrespectful, as you can still be negative, and we'll still let it pass. So thanks. We are planning on doing this every 2 or 3 weeks. We haven't been really good with that schedule since we moved into this series. in the spring, but we endeavor to do better. So again, we found ourselves in another tunnel. Please wash your hands, keep your distance when appropriate, mask up when appropriate, and please pay attention to actual people who have lots and lots of degrees and experience in this stuff when it comes to getting vaccinated. So that's all I'll say about that. That's all I'll say. Take care. Stay safe. See you next time. Well, I won't see you next time. I hate it when newscasters do that. You'll see me next time.